Alexander conquered Persia. But the strangest part of the conquest happened after the fighting was over. The Persian royal family had been captured, and among them were two princesses, daughters of the king Alexander had just defeated. He didn't kill them. He didn't throw them into a dungeon. Instead, he brought them into his own royal world. And for a while, they seemed safe, until Alexander died. And suddenly, being a Persian princess could be a death sentence. The year was 333 BC. The Battle of Issus had just ended. The Persian king, Darius, fled the battlefield to save his own life. But in his panic, he left something behind: his entire royal pavilion. His mother, his wife, and his daughters, Stateira and Drypetis. Overnight, two royal women had gone from living inside the most powerful court in the world to being prisoners of the man who had just destroyed their father's army, and they had every reason to fear what came next. In the ancient world, when a king's family was captured, the rules could be brutal: execution, public humiliation, or being sold into slavery. So they waited in their tent, listening to the heavy footsteps of soldiers outside, expecting the worst. But Alexander didn't open the door with a sword. Instead, he offered them something far more complicated: a golden cage. Alexander allowed them to keep their royal status. He provided servants, protection, and treated them with the respect normally reserved for queens. To the outside world, it looked like mercy, but politically, it was something else. Alexander had defeated Darius on the battlefield. Now he was showing the Persian elite that he could control the royal family without destroying it. He wasn't simply taking Persia. He was presenting himself as the man who could inherit its power. And Stateira was not an ordinary prisoner. She was the daughter of Darius, a living connection to the Achaemenid royal bloodline. And that bloodline mattered, because in a world where armies could change hands overnight, royal blood could become a weapon. Years passed. The Persian Empire was being transformed, and the princesses remained inside Alexander's new political world, protected by the very man who had conquered their father. Then, Alexander made his final move. He didn't just keep Stateira under his protection. He married her, and he married her sister, Drypetis, to his closest companion and general, Hephaestion. Suddenly, the two women were no longer simply daughters of a defeated king. They had become part of the new dynasty Alexander was trying to build. It was a political alliance disguised as a royal marriage, and for the moment their future looked secure. But there was one fatal flaw: their safety was tied to one man's heartbeat. The summer of 323 BC Babylon. Alexander the Great, the man who had conquered an enormous empire, was dead. He left behind territories stretching across continents, but he left no settled succession, and almost immediately, the men around him began fighting over what he had built. The history books usually focus on these men: the generals, the battles, the territories, and the wars that would tear his empire apart. But inside the palace, another war was beginning. A quieter, invisible, and just as deadly war. And at the center of it was another woman, Roxanna, his first wife, a Bactrian noblewoman. And now, she was carrying his unborn child. That changed everything, because if Alexander's unborn son survived, Roxanna had a chance to place her child on the throne. But there was a problem. Alexander had left behind other royal bloodlines, other wives, other potential heirs, and one of those women was Stateira, the Persian princess, Alexander's second wife, a daughter of Darius. And suddenly, the woman Alexander had protected for years could become a threat to Roxanna's future. Roxanna knew the brutal reality of the world she was living in. If her unborn child was going to survive, there could be no rival strong enough to challenge his claim, and Stateira represented exactly that danger. What if another general married the Persian princess? What if he used her Achaemenid bloodline to build his own claim to Alexander's empire? Stateira wouldn't need an army. She wouldn't need to command soldiers. Her blood was enough to make her dangerous, and there was something else. Stateira was living in the same royal world. after the death of the man who had protected her. The balance of power had changed overnight. Alexander was gone, his protection was gone, and the people surrounding the throne now had their own ambitions. To Roxanna, Stateira wasn't simply another widow. She was a potential rival, a political symbol, a woman whose existence could become useful to the wrong man. And when people believe that their survival depends on removing a rival, fear can become more powerful than reason. Roxanna couldn't take the risk. At least, that is how the ancient sources describe what happened next. Roxanna didn't send an army. She didn't make a public spectacle. She used deception. According to the ancient historian Plutarch, Roxanna tricked Stateira with a forged letter, a message that appeared to come from Alexander. The king was dead, but Stateira was led to believe that she was being summoned. And she trusted the message. That was the trap. The Persian princess, the daughter of Darius, the woman who had once been protected by Alexander, walked into the hands of the woman who now had the most to fear from her existence. Stateira arrived expecting safety, expecting to see the king. Instead, she found death. Alexander conquered Persia. The Persian king was defeated. His army was broken. His empire was absorbed into something new. But his royal blood survived, for a little longer. Stateira survived Alexander. Drypetis survived Alexander. They survived the fall of their father's empire. They survived captivity. They survived the rise of a new king. They even became part of Alexander's own dynasty. But they did not survive the death of the man who protected them. Because when Alexander died, the rules changed. The palace changed. And suddenly, the safest place in the world was no longer safe. The Persian princesses disappeared into a well, and with them, one of the last living links to the royal bloodline of Darius III. Alexander conquered Persia, but after he died, someone else decided who would be allowed to survive it.